And let's take a look at E and F. So E and F, a little bit challenging, right? This thing here is more in 2.3 and 2.4 rather than in 2.2. But again, we will eventually get there. But let's say if we have multiple items, you can see that we have one item in A, one item in B, one item, this thing here, we have two. We have the complement and the union. In here, we have all three, right? We have the union, we have the intersection, and then we have the complement, which is, again, this is all of the three definitions that we have relate to the operation of set. So one thing is they only doing, there's nothing new. Those are the only three definitions you will have. The only thing is they will scramble them around and they will ask you to see how can you analyze it? What do we need to do? So just like before, just like in any math, if you see the parenthesis, we want to work in the parenthesis first. So in the parenthesis, because basically they tell you, take whatever this region is, give me the common item between this region and the item outside of A, right? So looking at this thing here, because of my problem, everybody see that we got A prime. We got A prime because A prime, whatever A prime is, that's right here. That's my A prime, that's the item in A prime. But I want to know what is in A prime that is common with this item here. So in order for me to know what is in common, I have to know what is this item, which is I need to know what is B union C. And hopefully you guys heard me, union. And if you guys see union, meaning we unite them, which is if you unite them, you take whatever in B, unite them, combine them with whatever in C. And that's what the union is. We take whatever in B, unite them, put them together with C, which is again A, B, C, E, D, E, H, G, H, J, right? That all I do is I take whatever in B, unite them with C. That's what B union C. So I got this now. I got this region, guys, right? I have this region, whatever this region is, this region right here is this item. Now, to finish this problem, remember what is the intersection? The intersection tell me, look at this region and look at this region. What do they share? What do they have in common? Do you agree that they share A? They share B? They share H? And they share J. Do you agree that this four item, H and J? So again, this four item is in both A prime and in B or in C, right? So again, this is basically, again, the item that is in both B or C and outside of A. Again, if you read that, that's what you have to identify is the item inside either B or C, the item inside either B or C, right? The union of B or C, which is inside either B or C, and not in A or outside of A, okay? So again, those are the items that they share. If you do it, break it down like that, that is what we have. So question on how I got my answer. This is my answer here. My answer is A, the set contain A, D, A, B, H, and J. Those are the items that is either in A or in B or in C, but not in A. And let's take a look at F. And like I mentioned to you guys, we still have only three items. We have the intersection, the complement, and the union. And as always, if you have this item, we want to, or we need to do inside the parenthesis first. We need to, before taking the complement, which is knowing what we have here. Again, it's not this item and this item. It's different. It's what inside this parenthesis, which is, again, inside this parenthesis, take one operation at a time. Don't overthink. looking at this thing here, they ask you what is A have in common with B? What does A and B share? Which is, again, A and B, we did this already. Hopefully you guys see that A and B is right here, right? B and A or A and B is the same, right? What does A and B share? Which is A and B, they share this two items. They share the C and E, right? So again, C and E is in both A and also in B. In A and in B, or B and A, which is the same, right? But again, they look at this thing here, which is we need to find A intersection B. A intersection B is that item. And then they turn around and they say, whatever you just find, C and E, I don't want it. I want the complement of that. So what is the complement of C and E? Meaning whatever C and E, remember to find the complement, which is whatever C and E is, I throw that away. And if I throw that away, what is left? Do you agree that the leftover, once I throw it away, remember whenever you try to find a complement, you always compare to the universal set. So again, the complement of C and E, meaning C and E gone away, what is left? I have A, B, D, F, G, H, I, J. That is what is the complement of A and B, which is the item outside of the common area of A and B. And again, once you have that, they say take whatever this item is, unite them. Take whatever that item is, which is unite them, which is combine them. Take this item, combine them with C, which is, again, if you take this item, combine them with C, and if they repeat it, we don't have to write it twice. And if you combine them, your answer will be A, B, D, F, G, H, I, J. The only thing that is outside is the E and the C, right? So looking at this thing here, this is what we have is I take this item that I find, combine them with the C set, which is this C set, which is A, B, D, F, G, H, I, J. So again, this and this is a, C is a subset of this thing here because everything in C is also in here. So again, that's what we have there. So looking at this thing here, first of all, question with the definition, and I know the challenge part of you guys, the challenge part that you guys will encounter is you guys say, well, how do I read, if I give you this, right? If I give you this item, how do you read this item in English, in common language so that you can understand, right? That's the most challenging part. How can you read this in common language, right? You know, ask yourself, what is the main connector? One thing I tell my student is, you know, ask yourself, what is the main objective or the main connect? So again, we connect this item here. This is the item we connect, which is the union.
I have a question.
Yes.
So on the Alex, like you did in F with the A and the B with the combination of C. If A was united with B in the parentheses in the same exact way like that, but instead of it intersecting, it would be united with B. It would be the same as you united and what's not in it unites with C.
If you convert this thing here, let me do the text. The text doesn't give me if you say A union B, right? A union B is different because A union B, remember, union tell me that I have to take whatever in A, combine them within B. Right?
No, but I'm saying like if it was in the parentheses and if it was written the same way, except instead of it having the intersection, it would be the U.
It's not the same.
Okay.
It's not the same because if you look at this thing here, think about, let's finish it out, which is again A union B. This is what we have is we have A, C, E, D, E, H, F, G, and J, right? But then again, you say, well, they turn out and they ask you the complement of that, right? The complement of that meaning, again, you go in here and you say, well, let me cross out the thing that I have, which is I have to cross out the A, I have to cross out the C, I have to cross out the D, the E, the F, the H, the G, the H, and the J, which is the complement of this item. As you can see, the complement of that item, the answer is just the complement of that item. The answer is just B, comma, I, right? So it's not the same as before. The before was C and E, right? The before was C and E, which is not the same. So it's different. Is that making sense?
I'm understanding. I was asking because I when I did the Alex homework, I kind of got confused on that part because I was like, okay, well, if I'm intersecting it and finding a complement of it, and then uniting it with like the other letter, like C, does it like do it turn out similar? It doesn't have to be the same, but do it turn out similar? Like, do you still have to take it out of the universal set?
It's not the same. It's not the same. The only time it's the same is this, and I don't know if Alex asked you, but they might ask you for De Morgan law. The only time it's the same. Let me give me one. Give me. The only time that is the same is this. You guys still see my PowerPoint on the slide, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the only time it's the same is this, is if they, A union B complement is only the same if it's A complement intersection B complement. So one thing is, in order to be the same, this is what you will see is, in order to be the same, they have to be this way, in the sense that they have to look, if you were to distribute the complement in, the intersection is become the union and the union become the intersection. So basically, in order to be this thing here, they are equal. So the question you asked me are not equal because you cannot just take the complement of the union. It's not the same of the complement of the intersection. In order to be the same, they have to be the complement of each. You see that?
Yes, I see it now.
So vice versa, the other thing is, again, if you have A, vice versa, if you have A intersection B complement, then it's the same as A complement union B complement. So in order to be the same, that's what you have to do, is you have to distribute it to both of them and then change the sign.
Okay.
So that's what they call De Morgan law. But again, in order to be the same, that's what you have to do, is you have to take the complement of each of them and change the operation. Okay. Any other question here?
Yes.
Well, that is, yes.
Not bad. Okay, so going back to letter D that you did, I'm confused because I know you put, I forgot what the little comma or apostrophe stands for, but you didn't put H in it. So why'd you put every other letter but H?
This one here, there's a F.
F, my bad.
Yeah, there's an F in here. I told you I forgot the F because, again, this is what we did, was we have to take you have to take the B prime, right? And combine that with this thing here. So like I say, that's when I went over, I said I forgot the F, which is again, basically you just take those and combine them together. Is that answer your question?
Yeah.
Right. So looking at this thing here, and again, one thing is this thing here, we do it by hand, we do it breakdown, right? The other thing, if you don't have question, let's take a look at this thing here. And the other thing, you guys see the new PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
Did you guys see problem for 2.1 and 2.2?
Yes.
Okay, because last time I do it, it doesn't show. But anyway, let's take a look at the problem. Let's take a look at your typical problem, which is how do you use the Venn diagram to answer the question, right? So I make up this problem and I say this is the Delgado, let's say that this is your first year at Delgado and you are a nursing program and you are a accounting program. This is the course that you can take as your freshman years in nursing and your freshman years in accounting, right? Hypothetically, right? So let's just make up this thing here. And as you can see, this is what they have, which is, again, I have a nursing, instead of set A, I have a nursing set. Instead of set B, I have an accounting set. And again, this is all of the course that Delgado offer, which is they have electrician and Cosmo, right? So looking at this thing here, they ask you, A, how many class does a nursing major need to take for their program, right? So looking at this thing here, they don't ask you to list each individual class. They just ask you to give them how many class do they need to take, right? And so on and so forth, which is how many class do both the nursing and the accounting major need to take, how many class do accounting major need to take but not the nursing, how many class does neither one of them need to take, and using the roster method, which is E, that's when you need to list them out, right? So again, disregard of what information they give you, what the story behind the Venn diagram, let's just take a look at the Venn diagram, right? So let's take a look at the first question first, right? And again, like I say, I will post this thing on Canvas. You will see this slide on Canvas later when I post a video with this item. So again, how many class does a nursing major need to take for their program? Do you agree that looking at this thing here, as long as you in a nursing circle, as long as you in a nursing circle, do you agree that this is the class that nurses need to take? But also in addition to that, the nursing also can take this item, even though the accounting major can take it, but the nursing major can also take it too, right? Which is you go in here and you count, which is, do you agree that nursing, they can take 7 courses, right? They can take English 101, Math 120, Math 130, Nursing 113, Nursing 117, Biology 251, and Biology 253. Which is, again, do you agree that those are the 7 courses that the nursing program nursing student major can take? And again, if they ask you to list them, you just list each of them out. In this case, they ask you for the cardinal number, which is the how many individual items, right? And secondly, the next question they ask you, how many class do both the nursing and the accounting major need to take? So remember, both of them, this biology, the accountant doesn't need to take, right? Both of them mean the intersection of the two, right? How many class do both of them need to take, right? Both the nursing and the accountant, which is, again, what is the intersection? Where do both of them share? The one or the 3 class that they share is English, nursing, Math 120 and Math 130, which is those are the 3 courses that both the nursing and the accounting major need to take. And again, I know you say, well, the nursing need to take biology, but the accountant doesn't need to take it, right? Vice versa, the accountant need to take the accountant, but the nursing major doesn't need to take it, because when they ask you for both, which is the intersection of the two, okay? And vice versa, how many classes do an accounting major need to take but not the nursing, which is again basically inside accounting but not in nursing, right? If you remember, if I mentioned, right, nursing intersects, I mean not nursing, accounting intersection the nurse prime, right, the complement of nurse. So what do the accounting major need to take but outside of the nursing major, which is, again, do you agree that the accounting 101, 201, the accounting 203, business, management, and econ, right, economic. So looking at this thing here, we can see that there are 5 courses that the accounting major can take, but the nursing major do not need to take it. They can take it, but they don't need to take it for their major, right? And again, for D, how many does neither the nursing major, none the accounting major need to take, which is, do you agree that anything outside of the nursing circle or anything outside of the accounting major, which is, again, there are 2 classes that neither, none, the 2, right? Neither one, none the other. So again, electrician 102 and cosmetology 111. And lastly, they ask you to list, using the roster method, to list the class that the nursing major need to take, but not the accounting major. So we know that the nursing major need to take, but not the accounting, which is in this area here, right? The area where just the nurse and outside the accountant, which is, if you list them, which is the roster method, which is the biology 251, biology 253, nursing 113, and nursing 117. So that's the idea of the Venn diagram. Instead of do it by hand like we did last time, we can use the Venn diagram to illustrate, to show us which region am I looking at, what region do I have, okay? So looking at this thing here, question in terms of the region, right? If you look at the pink region right here, if you look at this region, it's basically nursing student need to take, but not the accountant, right? And if, let me see if I have, if you see this thing here, this is the, if you look at this item right here, this region is a nursing but not accountant. If you look at this item right here, this will be the, this item will be the both nursing and the accountant. Both of them, they need both. And if you look at this region, it's basically the accountant but not the nursing, and vice versa. If you look at the outside region, this is neither, none. Neither the accountant, none the nursing, right? So again, question with any of this A, B, C, D, or E here. Question with this 5 item using this Venn diagram. And again, you can practice on Alex. They have a few of this thing here. You can practice. And the other thing I want you to show you guys, so that when you go on Alex, you know what to do. And if you look at this thing here, they give you different item. So this thing here, they ask you, instead of list like what we did prior to this PowerPoint, we list each element out. This one here, instead of list them out, they ask you to shade the corresponding region, right? So in this way, you can visualize your item, and then whatever element in that item, that will be your answer in your listing item, okay? So let's take a look at this thing here, which is, again, they ask you for A, they ask you to shade the region J union K. So J union K mean, again, what is in J or in K. So if you look at this thing here, again, you know, that's one thing, is you want to know how to read your symbolic. So if you read this thing here, it's basically tell you shade the region in J or the region in K. And if you remember, I told you guys that the union, you just combine them together. you just unite them together, which is, again, do you agree that this is in J? Do you agree that this is in K? But also, doesn't matter if it's in both J and K, as long as it's in K or as long as it's in J, this is what I have. Okay, so again, looking at this thing here, everybody see that this is the region that is in either J or in K, and maybe or in both, right? So as long as you have this thing here, which is if you use in the Venn diagram, whatever the item in this region that you shaded, that's what you listed, right? So again, we would do more of that next time in terms that we have the actual individual item and then we have to list them out. But for now, we just want to give you the idea of what region we have, okay? So again, this is the region that in either in J or in K. And if you look at this thing here, which is in B, they ask you, shade the region in J and outside of K. So what region in J and not in K, or but not in K? So do you agree that in J, this is what in J, I mean, this is outside of K, right? So what does this two region, again, this is outside of K, between the two regions I just shaded, what item is in J, right? So again, looking at this thing here, because of the union, because of the intersection is very restrict, it has to be in both items, in both settings. It has to be in J and also not in K. Because looking at this thing here, do you agree that this is not in K? But we cannot include this region because this region is not in J. I will try to make a different letter. J and K is again, the item that in J, but not in K, which is, this is the only item. Because of the intersection, the overlapping of the two, which is, this is the only item that overlap that is in J and outside of K. And if you look at this item here, which is, again, as you can see, J, C, and E, I give you C and E so that you can see that they are different. And let's go back to the question that you asked me earlier, right? So if you look at C, let's take a look at C, which is, looking at C here, we say that the complement of the union. So for me, this is what we do is, we know that this is what we need to do, shade is the outside region of J or K. So for me, if we were to do this by hand, we want to shade, again, we know that J or K is this item, which is, again, those are the things inside of your parenthesis. But they're not asking us this, right? They ask us the complement, which is whatever this region is, give me the complement of that. Give me the thing that is not belong in that region. So what does not belong in that region? Do you agree that everything else, which is the outside region, again, the item outside of J or K, which is what is outside of J or K, which is everything else that is not in the J circle or in the K circle. So those are the complement. Everybody say that this is the complement of the, the shaded outside is the complement of the red, right? Together is equal to my universal set. But the complement of the union is basically whatever not in J or not in K, okay? And looking at this thing here, I should say and. What is in not in J and not in K, okay? Looking at D is easy. Hopefully you guys see that outside of J are all in K, which is, again, this is outside of J. Do you agree that those items is outside of J? But because of the difference between B, the difference between B versus D is because of the union, you just combine whatever you have with K, okay? Remember in B, we have to see what they overlap. The only region overlap, but this one here, because of the union, clearly we know that this is outside of J. The two item I shaded is outside of J. And now whatever that item is, I have to combine with K, which is those are the items that I need to take, okay? So the difference between the intersection versus the union, that's what you have to identify. And one thing I tell my student is the union, as long as you shade it, the union, as long as you touch it, you use it. The intersection, in order for you to use it, you have to double shade it. You have to overlap, okay? That's what the intersection is. Where do they overlap? And lastly, let's do E, which is E. If the outside region of A, J, and K, which is looking at this thing here, do you agree that J and K is this item, right? J and K is this item, which is, again, J and K is where does the two items intersect. But then they turn around, they say, I want the complement of that. Meaning, whatever you just shaded, I don't want it. Throw that region away. I want the region outside of the thing that you just shaded, which is everything else except the J and the K region. Everything else except the overlap. And if you look at this thing here, this is my C. My C item, the answer for C is this item here. A, B, this is the answer for C, and this is the answer for E, which is, if you look at these two things, they are clearly not the same region that you shaded. And that's why they are not equal, right? If they have the same region that you shaded, again, this item is your C item, and this item is your E item, which is, as you can see, the union versus the intersection, they are different. And since they are different, you cannot use it, they are not equal, okay? But again, question here, question with this item. Now practice shading, because I know Alex, they asked you a few of that. Let's take a look. You have 8 minutes. We should be able to finish this thing here. Let's take a look at this question, so that over the weekend, you guys can work on 2.1 and 2.2. And again, looking at this thing here, once again, I just make up problem. So they say use a roster method to list the element in a given set, right? So the Delgado Math Tutor Center have 10 tutors that can tutor either Math 120 or Math 203. Here are the name of all the tutors that can tutor the class, right? So they give you John can tutor both Math 120 and Math 203. Bill and Mary can tutor Math 120, but not Math 203. Susan, Jim, Bob, and Rashad can tutor Math 203, but not 120. Tyler, Kishan, and Sofan can tutor neither Math 120, none Math 203. And they ask you to list the tutor who can teach Math 120, list the tutor who can tutor Math 203, who cannot teach and tutor, and so on and so forth. So one easy way to do this, ladies and gentlemen, one easy way to do this is to construct your Venn diagram. And again, we will mention more about construct Venn diagram next time. But again, let me give you the idea of construct the Venn diagram given this example. All right. So looking at this thing here, they give us this, which is, again, let's construct my intersection of the two, right? I have my Math 120 on one side, Math 203 on the other side. So if the first thing they tell us is John can tutor both Math 120 and Math 203, which is, do you agree that both, meaning again, John will be here. He is in the 120 circle and he is in the 203 circle, meaning he can both. He is the intersection of the two courses. He can tutor both courses, right? So that's the intersection, that's the and, that's the both, right? And they tell you Bill and Mary can tutor Math 120, but not 203, which is, again, Bill and Mary is here, right? Bill and Mary can tutor Math 120, but outside of the 203 rem, which is outside of 203 circle. And vice versa, right? Susan, Jam, Bob, and Rashawn can tutor Matt 203, but not 120, which is again 203, but not 120, which is they in the 203 circle, but they outside of the 120 circle, which is just that item. And the last information they give us is Tyler, Kishan, and Shafan can tutor neither. None. What does it mean? Neither, none, meaning again, they can tutor something else. They can tutor the algebra, they can tutor the calculus, but they cannot tutor 120, or none can they tutor 203, which is, do you agree that those are my region? Again, Bill, Mary, those are the items that tutor 120, but not 203. John tutor both 120, 203, and so on and so forth. And again, go back to our question. They ask you to list off the tutor who can tutor Math 120. So where is the tutor who can tutor Math 120? Which is, do you agree that whoever in the Math 120 circle, they tutor Math 120? Which is in this case, Bill, Mary, and John. Doesn't matter the order, John, Mary, and Bill, or Mary, John, Bill, whatever. But do you agree that those are the three people that can tutor Math 120? Right? Those are the three people. You know, instead of list them out, we use the Venn diagram so that we can see. And B, they ask you list the tutor who can tutor 203, which is again 203. This is the people. It's just basically the 203 people in the addition to John, because John is the wild card. He can tutor both. He is in the 120 and the 203, right? So everything in the 120 include with John. Everything in the 203 include with John, because John are in both. And again, list all of the tutor who cannot tutor 120. Do you agree that these people are the people who cannot tutor 120, right? So again, Susan, Jan, Bob, Rashawn, Tyler, Kishan, and so forth. Anything outside of the 120 circle, meaning those are the people that cannot tutor 120. And lastly, they ask you list all of the tutor who can either tutor 120 or 203 or both, which is, do you see that this is the union of the 120 union with the 203, which is either or both, okay? Which is they can either, again, it's not tell you that Bill and Mary can tutor 120. It's either one section or one class or the other class, and just uniquely John tutor both. Okay, which is again, these are the people, which is again, anything in that is either one or the other or both. Okay, so this is the idea of the Venn diagram, and this is the idea, you know, how can you take the information and convert to your Venn diagram? Okay, and on Tuesday of next week, we will do more of the Venn diagram. And if you see that, if you confuse in terms of doing by hand, like the one that we did on the other slides, you can see if you can construct the Venn diagram and use the Venn diagram so that you can find the information. Okay. So question here. Any question?
It's not Mr. Train is